Welcome back to Cheddar, everyone. There's a new epicenter of the coronavirus in the U.S., and it is Florida. The state just today recorded a record number of deaths. 132 is the number, which is a 10% jump over the previous record set just last Thursday. Joining me now is Nikki Fried, Florida Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services. Commissioner Fried, thank you so much for taking the time here and joining us today. You've been critical of Florida Governor DeSantis in tweets saying that the governor is not going to be the leader Florida needs at this time. What do you think that Florida needs Governor DeSantis to do to stem this spike in cases, and who is anyone, who, if anyone, has been filling the gap while he does seemingly nothing?
Well, and that's the exact problem, is that there has been no leadership from the governor. We have seen that from day one, is giving misinformation to the citizens of our state. I had called for a shutdown 3 weeks prior to him actually initiating it, and then he reopened too fast. We had a very methodical, data-driven reopening plan that he threw out the window. So we opened up too fast, went to phase 1, and then went to phase 2. There was absolutely zero accountability to local establishments who were not following those guidelines. And I think part of the problem is that he went on this national circuit, claiming mission accomplished, that we had flattened this curve and that all of the media and all the critics were all wrong. Instead of being, having some humility about the situation, he got very egotistical and put his head down in the sand and said, well, we got it done and now we're moving forward, inviting the RNC to the state, reopening so many of our businesses, asking for NBA to come here to the state. And, so basically he's shown no leadership. And I think part of the problem is that he's not taking this seriously. And so when he doesn't take it seriously, how can businesses and the people of our state, take it seriously? Or they just have lost, complete trust and faith in him. So we've seen zero leadership. And we have an entire cabinet, both myself and 2 other individuals, our chief financial officer and attorney general, but he's not relied on any of us, has not talked to any of us. I oversee the second largest economic driver for our state, which is agriculture. And he's not been in touch with myself or my department, even seeing where we are in agriculture for the state. And so until which time that we actually get this under control, who's going to come to the state of Florida? Tourism is #1 economic driver, which is at a complete standstill. And, we're asking people to come travel here to increase our economy. But when you have a governor who is just taking orders from the White House and giving, not doing anything drastic, like talking about scaling back some of the reopening, a statewide mask ordinance, something else I called for about 2 weeks ago, he's refused to do. And so when you're seeing a lack of leadership and only concerned about making sure we have enough nurses and enough hospital beds, how about we take concerns about making sure people don't get into the hospitals and making sure that we don't have to deal with the capacities of our beds and the nurses, because we're doing everything we can to prevent the spread. And that is just not what's happening here in the state.
Commissioner, what measures are you and the CFO able to get through without the approval, that stamp of approval from the governor, Governor DeSantis?
None. We have no power over any of those. Discretion under a state of emergency decisions. So what I can keep doing is sending out this message to our citizens to start taking measures in their own hands, making sure that they're wearing a mask, making sure that they're still social distancing, that they're not attending large crowded events, and that just because an establishment is open doesn't mean that you should be attending them. And we're relying a lot on our local governments. This is what has happened through this entire pandemic, that so many of our mayors and county and city commissioners have had to stand up and pass their own local ordinances, whether that was a stay-at-home or curfews, and now the mask ordinance. And even in parts of Miami-Dade County, you're starting to see additional measures that they are taking there because the governor has refused to show leadership on these issues.
I absolutely want to discuss agriculture with you. The entire supply chain has been disrupted during this pandemic. And so as you're thinking kind of across the different sectors of the agriculture and consumer services, what's Florida doing to help get things back up and running?
Yeah, so agriculture is #2 and is actually #1 economic driver in the peak of our harvest. And so we saw a tremendous downturn in so much of our economy on the fact that our food supply services were closed, which means our restaurants were closed or not ordering as much. You have our cruise line industry, which orders a lot from our local farmers. Disney World and all of our huge park. And so in all of those industries, that is really where agriculture in the state of Florida took the major hit. We had about $522 million worth of economic damage. And so what we did is we reached outside the box. We created an online marketplace to connect our consumers right to our local farmers. We had a tremendous success when it came to that. And our local farmers are resilient. They came up with new ideas of how to retrofit their productions and retrofit their own businesses, whether it was providing foods directly to their local communities, working with our local food banks and providing food to the local food banks. So it was a collaborative effort, but I know that we are resilient and we will get through this. And everybody's starting to look through precautions for August when we start getting some of our workforce back here and start planting again in next year's harvest season.
Considering all of the different places that food actually goes out to, you talk about some of the partners, not only on the grocery side of the business, but also into some of the parks, the resorts, these different restaurants and so forth. I wanted to get your thoughts, particularly on the resorts and Disney reopening right now.
Yeah, so I've had conversations with Disney and a lot of our theme parks on the reopening, and they certainly are good actors as far as that they are taking all the appropriate precautions that they felt were necessary. But unfortunately, it was the governor who has allowed them to create the plan and to submit it. And the truth of the matter is that should not be the priorities right now in the state of Florida. It is sending a wrong message that as our cases are continuing to spike, that we are reopening things like our theme parks. And so it goes back to, to my original point is that just because establishments like our theme parks are open or fitness centers, I'm a huge fitness buff, would love to be at my gym for hours a day, but unfortunately, that might not be the right approach right now. And so we all have to be in this together. And that's what the shutdown did, is that made us all in this together. But unfortunately, the leadership on the reopening, platform for our state was just not, it's hurting our citizens and it's hurting our economy because we didn't have a good plan on how to reopen our state. And certainly would love to see Disney back open in full force, and would love to see people coming to the state of Florida to visit our beautiful beaches and all of our theme parks. But until which time that we can get this under control, I certainly heed caution.
Yeah, I might even wear my Mickey Mouse ears to the gym just to combine all of the experience once things are open finally safely again. But totally share the sentiment there. Just lastly, while we have you, GOP convention set to take place 7 weeks, supposed to be in Florida. From your perspective, should this be going forward in Florida as it is planned right now?
As the numbers are continuing to spike in the state, and I certainly, my heart goes out for so many of our small businesses, and certainly we'd want to have our economy be boosted by having the RNC here in the state, but without the precautions of making sure everybody wears a mask, making sure that everybody has an ability to social distance, we're really putting people's lives at risk, not only the participants who are actually coming to the state, but people that are living in the surrounding communities, including those of our workforce who are working the restaurants and the hotels. So as of today, with such increasing numbers, record-breaking national numbers on Sunday of 15,000, record-breaking amount of people that died last 24 hours, I would second guess the leadership call to bring RNC here to the state.
Nikki Fried, Florida Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us.